Hennes-Weisweiler, the 5th of December 1919 in Lechenich, Rhine province, the 5th of July 1983 in Zürich, Switzerland, was a German footballer and coach, with 11 titles, 8 thereof with German clubs. He is one of the most successful coaches of all time, but his influence went well beyond. At the German Sports Academy in Cologne, he was between 1957 and 1970 responsible for the training of hundreds of coaches from all over the world. In 2005, the training center for coaches there was named in his honor Hennes-Weisweiler-Academy. His work will remain most closely associated with the fortunes of Borussia Mönchengladbach in the 1960s and 70s and won FC Köln in the 1950s and the second half of the 1970s. He is also famous for having unearthed the talents of many outstanding football players, such as Günter Netzer, Berti Vogts, Jupp Heynckes, Rhine Bonhof, Allan Simonsen, Uli Stielike, and many more. From player to coach in Cologne. After one, FC Köln was founded in 1948. Weisweiler featured in the first ever lineup of the club. After the club was promoted in 1949 into the Western Division of the then five-way split West German First Division, Oberliga, he was given the role of player-manager. In this position, which he held until 1952, he played himself still 62 times in the league. In 1955, he returned to the club for another 3 years as head coach, but left in 1958 to join local rivals Viktoria Köln, which also played in the Oberliga. But the club remained in the shadow of the 1. FC. After the foundation of the Bundesliga in 1963, Viktoria played in the second German division and with place 4 achieved its best ever ranking. In the last year of Weisweiler's reign of the club, years in Mönchengladbach, in 1964 he took over as manager with Borussia Mönchengladbach. The club still held relatively fresh memories from its one and only major title, the win in the German Cup of 1960, but found itself after the inception of the Bundesliga in the second division where it finished just 8th in the previous year. But he found a team with some exciting local talent, such as the 19-year-old Günter Netzer and Jupp Heynckes. Also Bernd Rupp and Herbert Laumann were notable and should at a later stage also feature in the national team. Inside a year, Borussia ended on top of the league and gained promotion to the Bundesliga. With the beginning of the new season, another remarkable 19-year-old was to join the team, Berti Vogts. But the first years in the Bundesliga remained learning years. Despite the later addition of another talented man named Herbert Wimmer, Borussia only achieved the 13th and 8th places in the league. In its third year, the club grabbed for the first time the attention of a wider audience and finished third. Despite losing Heynckes to Hannover 96, the team, by now famed for their attacking style, managed to repeat this success in the following year. At the beginning of the 1969-70 season, they were even widely tipped as being the holders Bayern Munich's main rival for the championship. Even more so as the defense could be strengthened, e.g., with international Ludwig Müller, and the attack reinforced with the addition of Danish international Ulrich Lefebvre. Most important, however, was that the talents like Horst Koppel, himself a Borussia coach in decades to come, had reached sufficient maturity to hold their own on the highest level. Decisive was also Weisweiler's ability to find and add further gifted young players seemingly at will. This youth culture eventually gave Borussia the nickname they still carry today, the Foals. Indeed, by the end of the year the team was champion for the first time, and another 12 months later, the club from the small town became the first side in Bundesliga history to defend the title. With a 4-1 away win in Frankfurt, the Borussia could fend off a late Bayern challenge on the last match day. Their first European Champions Cup participation ended in the second round when, after 2 1-1 draws with Everton, Borussia lacked the necessary luck in the penalty shootout. This was unfortunate. Their second challenge ended in heartbreak. This time Helenio Herrera's Catenaccio specialists Inter Milan came to visit the Bokelberg Stadium. After 90 minutes, an unstoppable Borussia had wiped them off 7-1. But during the course of the match, Inter's Roberto Bonensegner was allegedly hit by an empty soft drink can and had himself spectacularly stretchered off. There was no real evidence of this fact apart from an empty drink can being presented to the referee and some accompanying words from Inter officials. Despite this, UEFA annulled the match and had it repeated after the return match on neutral ground in Berlin. Inter won the return match against a Borussia, seemingly shocked by this decision, with 4-2 and managed to defend a 0-0 in Berlin match. Also in the Bundesliga, it was not the year of the Fohls. Only 3 days after the initial triumph against Inter, they defeated the surprise team of the season and vice-champion in the making, Schalke 04, dashingly with 7-0. But Bayern Munich got the title and Borussia ended up third. Before the season, Borussia had to let Dietrich Horst Koppel and Herbert Laumann go, and thus all parts of the team were crucially weakened, as new talents such Rainer Bonhof and Dietmar Danner were not yet in a position to fill the gaps. The 1972-73 season saw a further restructuring of the team. This time experienced players such as Ulrich Lefebvre left the club. New to the team were 2 young Danish forwards, Henning Jensen and Allan Simonsen. Whilst the first one made an immediate impact, the 19-year-old diminutive lightweight Simonsen was immediately regarded a dud by everyone who had an opportunity to see him in one of his rare appearances. Weisweiler's expressions of belief in the player were met with general disbelief. Only 5 years later, Simonsen should be Europe's Player of the Year, and history regards him these days as the greatest player ever from Denmark. However, the season was overshadowed by the first great conflict of Weisweiler with his star. Günter Netzer was alongside his clubmates Herbert Wimmer and Jupp Heynckes a part of the stunning German side that won the 1972 European Championship in Belgium, and many thought he was this tournament's most glamorous player. Essentially, in Weisweiler's teams, if there was a star, it was supposed to be him. The conflict ended in divorce, and a few weeks before the end of the season, Netzer's departure to Real Madrid was announced. There was still one important match to go. The cup final in Dusseldorf. Not just against anyone, but Weisweiler's original club, FC Köln. The atmosphere was highly emotionally charged. The coach left Netzer on the bench. Nevertheless, the match evolved into probably the greatest of all German cup finals. Despite a temperature of 35 degrees, both teams played fully devoted to attack. But on both sides, the keepers, Borussia's Wolfgang Kleff and Cologne's Gerhard Wells, performed absolute world-class, the latter even saving a penalty by Heynckes in the second half. In the short break before extra time, Netzer stepped on the field and approached the exhausted Kulik and told him that his match is over and put himself into the team. When the referee restarted the match, Netzer, in his first possession of the ball, scored the stunning, unforgettable winner for Borussia after a give-and-go with Bonhof. Thus ended one of football's great associations, the sour end of it probably also being a factor why Borussia only ended up 5th in the league that season. Interpersonal issues out of the way, Weisweiler had more time again for team building. This paid off when a consolidated Borussia ended the 1973-74 season second. Again, Weisweiler managed to infuse new talent into his side, Uli Stielike being probably the most remarkable in this phase. He ended up later in Netzer's footsteps at Real Madrid. The newfound harmony also helped Weisweiler to a formidable farewell season, with 86 goals, never before and never again achieved by the club. The team cruised to the championship. To boot, Borussia got also their first international title when, after a disappointing 0-0 draw at home, FC Twente from Enschede was wiped off 5-1 in the second leg of the UEFA Cup final. Thus ended an exciting 11 years of Weisweiler in Mönchengladbach, a time in which he indelibly engraved the club in German and even European football history. A time in which Borussia Mönchengladbach spilled out first-class talents in an unrivaled fashion. FC Barcelona. Weisweiler moved after 11 years in Mönchengladbach in the summer of 1975 to the Spanish top club Barcelona. His predecessor Rinus Michels returned after 4 years with the Catalans back to Amsterdam. When asked why he would leave Mönchengladbach at the height of his influence and success, he said in an interview, "I have shaped a team with my style. Now I'll try to enforce it in Spain." Quote, with FC Barcelona and the Dutch stars Cruyff and Johan Neeskens, he wanted to achieve his aim, to win the European Champions Cup. But right from day one, Cruyff and Weisweiler were in a state of war. "Weisweiler is not the manager of my choice," stated the Dutch playmaker, who guessed that he would get under Weisweiler, apparently not the kind of freedom to play as he was used to. Coaching record. As of 20 January 2014. Career overview. Hennes-Weisweiler at worldfootball.net